Now, people in the Czech Republic are celebrating the 30th anniversary of the Velvet Revolution. It's an event that marked the end of 41 years of communist rule in what was then Czechoslovakia. Well, anti-communist dissident Václav Havel led the protests in Prague on November 17, 1989, and a month-long non-violent transition of power followed, with the subsequent dismantling of the Communist Party's hold. Well, let's get more on this now. We're joined by David Ondráčka, the Director of Transparency International's Czech Republic office, and he's joining us live from Berlin. Very good to have you with us on Al Jazeera today. So 30 years since the end of communist rule in former Czechoslovakia, marked with many thousands of protesters rallying against the President, the Prime Minister on Saturday, accusing both of corruption and fraud, especially the Prime Minister. And a poll released this month shows that there's widespread concern that democracy won 30 years ago is now under threat, is it?
It is. We have to realize that Velvet Revolution was a unique moment of our history. We got rid of very oppressive and inefficient regime, and we gained a lot of positive things like democracy, freedom, ability to make a business, study and everything. But after 30 years, it seems that a lot of people actually are not completely happy about the way the country is governed. We have a huge wave of oligarchs who are now entering politics, who are buying media, and they, in my view, they are actually putting the country on the wrong way. Actually, our current minister, our current Prime Minister, Mr. Babiš, is actually the second richest person. His conflict of interest is colossal, and that's what brings people to the streets and to protest.
Right. He is a billionaire, of course, and there have been allegations of corruption, of fraud against him. But when protesters call for his removal, would removing Prime Minister Babiš or President Zeman get rid of the concerns now for the Czech people, or do the problems go wider than that, than these two people?
Well, obviously, problems are much deeper. We are concerned about the rule of law, accountable government, about quality of our institutions, and these people represent them. So at this moment, protesters are calling for their dismissal, and they call for political solutions of the current situation. But obviously, the concerns are much deeper. We have to think of this very complex transition of our economy and society, which is fascinating on one hand, but it also brought a lot of challenges. The road was very bumpy, and we, even after 30 years, we are still with a lot of work to do because democracy is never over.
Of course. And what are some of the things that need to happen? For a start, in light of the accusations against the Prime Minister, is Czech legislation up to, say, EU regulations?
We as a TI, we actually started complaints towards European Commission, but also to national authorities to solve this colossal conflict of interest where he is a prime minister. At the same time, his companies are the biggest recipients of public money, and he owns media at the same time. We believe that's not acceptable, and it needs to be fixed. At this moment, the litigation is going on. We hope to hear some final verdict from European Commission, from Brussels, in 2 or 3 weeks' time, and we hope that also national authorities will act. But it's very difficult because partly some of the institutions are captured, and political influence is really very strong.
Mr. Ondráčka, we thank you very much for your time on this important anniversary. That is David Ondráčka, live in Berlin. Thank you. Now, the Conservative Party in the UK is pushing for new legislation to protect